Oh, this could be an opening. The man they want to have the opening. It's Lauren Sheffield. That is the moment. The moment of matters.
Welcome back, everyone, to Hearts on Sleeves podcast, a podcast all about Heart of Midlothian Football Club, its fans, and the ups and downs we experience both on and off the pitch. It was a week that saw us, for the first time in over 55 years, where Hearts have come back from 3 goals down to avoid defeat. That was in 1969 by my calculations, which feels round about the last time we managed to get all of the Hearts on Sleeves team together. However, we have managed it today, a full complement, and in a moment I'll check in with them all before we look at the weekend's 6-goal thriller. There's both good and bad to take away from it, and we will analyse it all. After this, we will discuss the latest going-ons at Hearts and look at some of the recent debates in the media before we look ahead to the Livingston game at the weekend. So, how are you all doing? John, as you've not been here for a while, I'm going to check in with you first. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Happy to be back. And yeah, a bit mixed feelings after the weekend, but generally not been too bad.
Yes, lots and lots to talk about from that game, and it was an emotional roller coaster. How are you holding on in there, Adam?
I'm doing well. I think I'm doing better than I was after the St Mirren game, even if this one was a bit disappointing at times as well.
Now, Trunter, we spoke to you a couple of weeks, well, we spoke to you last week, but a couple of weeks before that, you said you'd been through a really difficult time and it was good to get along to the St Mirren game to try and take your mind off things. Said you wanted to sort of talk a wee bit about that today. Are you okay to do that?
Yeah, man, absolutely. I just wanted to mention, unfortunately, we lost my brother-in-law, Alan McLaren, a few weeks ago, which was a real shame. He was a really top guy. We're quite like a close family, and just having that bit taken away has just been really, really hard on all of us. So this was my girlfriend's sister's partner. So obviously it's a lot harder for them. So I've been kind of just trying to help everyone out where I can, really. But yeah, it just catches you unaware sometimes. Some days are a wee bit worse than other ones. But I think we're all getting there, and it's been quite encouraging to see how the family's all pulled together. You know, he had a 13-year-old son who's basically my wee best pal. He's a cracking little footballer as well. But I've been hanging out with him a lot, so lots of football, lots of dog walks. But he's such a strong wee fella. He's doing great. Alan he was actually a top-notch midfielder. He played for Dunbar United, sort of the mid-late 90s. He was a really hard-working midfielder, apparently. Obviously, I never got to see him play, but he was part of the side that got promotion to the First Division in the late 90s. And his dad and his brother had actually been Dunbar United managers at one point as well. So yeah, obviously that's why I missed episodes 3 and 4. You guys have been really, really kind to me when we were going through that, so thank you guys. But yeah, just wanted to say that wee bit about Alan. Really top guy, and he's going to be really, really missed.
Yeah, thank you for talking about it, Trunter. I know that just talking about it is hopefully helpful to you, but also to people listening in. And of course, thoughts are with Alan's family and friends at this really difficult time. The game at the weekend, then, we were on the back of I suppose a defeat against St Mirren, a penalty shootout defeat. So it kind of felt like one, but also not really. Either way, it did feel like a really good opportunity to dust ourselves off and get back to winning ways. It was a really special day for me as well, because it was the first time in 15 years that my dad felt able to come along. He's been dealing with health issues, and this is the first time in about 15 years that he's felt able to come along to Tynecastle again. Last time he was there, it looked a heck of a lot different. People who follow me on social media, or the Hearts on Sleeves social media, will have found out a bit more about my adventures with him to Tynecastle, but it was great having him back there, and I'll sort of talk a bit more about him being there afterwards. But yeah, it was just amazing having him back there. Definitely didn't feel like the best occasion at points during the game, and we'll certainly, unfortunately, have to touch on those parts as well as the better parts as well. So the lineup was as follows. Clark was in goals, and it was a 4-4-2, and it was Steinvender, Halkett, Finlay, and Milne. Then you've got Kabori, McEntee, Devlin, and Forrest, Shankland, and Wilson up top. Now, typically, I usually do my go back to where you were mentally at this point and think about what you felt about this team. But no, it was clear and obvious fairly early on in this match that the team just wasn't set up right. The players, the formation, none of it really sat that well. Adam, I mean, the most obvious one that we talked about before, during, and after the game was the absence of Braga up top.
It was really the second week in a row where you saw the lineup and you felt like, what's McInnes doing, which was pretty disappointing. I felt after the St Mirren disappointment, I did think McInnes would revert back to the kind of team we were expecting to see. So I was very surprised to see Braga absent. I was surprised to see Kabori starting second week in a row. And although Forrest puts in a lot of work, it's also slightly alarming that, he's still someone who is getting a start as well. So it was quite a concerning lineup for me in that 2 weeks in a row we've played a team that I don't think most people would have fancied.
For the game itself, actually, I felt, John, that we started off fairly brightly. Now, I say we started off, I think that probably lasted about 15 minutes, but I was kind of optimistic, to be perfectly honest. After those 15 minutes, no clear-cut opportunities, but we seemed to be finding a bit of space down the channels. What was your feelings right up until that first goal? And also, give me your thoughts as well about that lineup and what Adam said.
Yeah, so with the lineup, I do agree with what Adam said. Also, one thing that kind of stuck with me was after the St Mirren game, McInnes was saying, "Oh no, I got it wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have gone with that team." So to then sort of pick, not revert back to what worked, but also to pick a different formation, throw the same guys in like Kabori again, who clearly didn't look like he was ready maybe to start yet or in that position. It was a bit of a shock. It didn't work clearly for the first half. As far as the actual game, I think you're right. I think we did start reasonably well and we were doing a lot of attacking. But I do think that's part of what killed us defensively with the four at the back. I think Milne looks like he's way more comfortable playing with the three defenders behind him where he can push on. And it was almost like he hadn't been given the instruction of, track back or stay further back with the four at the back. Because every time they attacked, he's a bit higher up. There's that big gap between him and Finlay. And yeah, they just exploited it.
And that's probably a word that we'll come back to again and again throughout this game is gaps. Motherwell seemed to find a huge amount of space at times, particularly in that first half. They were focusing their attacks at points down the right, which is kind of what you might expect them to do. But at the same time, a lot came through the middle. However, their first goal, which came at the 20th minute, John, can you talk us through that one?
So obviously a big part of our season has been set pieces, in the attacking sense. A lot of our goals have come from that. But it does seem like we have sort of skipped across the defensive side because it's another set piece we've conceded. Obviously very well worked from Motherwell, so fair play to them. They did what they had to do, but it does make you worry that the marking just wasn't there. It seemed like we switched off completely.
I think the thing that really sort of concerned me just throughout this first half, we spoke about the gaps and so forth. There just seemed that complete lack of urgency. We were second to every ball at points, it seems. Adam, we talked about that sort of at half-time, came down and spoke to me and my dad about that. And, just before half-time, you could really sense that the crowd was turning. We did manage to get a shot before the half finished. Shankland received a quick free kick and passed it over to Kabori. It was well saved. And, Kabori, at times he did look a bit of a pest down that right. And I think he's got something about him. I'm just not convinced that's going to be his preferred position. I would really like to see him start up front. I'm not sure who would you switch him out with Shankland? Hard to say. What were your thoughts on Kabori, Adam, and kind of also just that first half, particularly with the crowd turning against the team a wee bit?
I mean, I'd say Kabari probably did a little bit more in this game than he did in the Samurn one. But I think I agree with everyone else that I'm not convinced that's his best position. Would like to see him start up front at some point. But I think the biggest concern again is just that's him played 2 weeks in a row and been hooked at half time. And that's hard to understand why he's been getting put in a second week in a row. You'd think he'd be better coming off the bench, gradually getting ready until he's in a position where he can start and hopefully in his favoured position. And I think the other issue we have, I was very happy that Shankland signed a new deal, but I do think we have a slight issue with him being captain because it's going to be very difficult to take him out of the team or even sub him. So I feel like we don't have as much flexibility at the moment in terms of who we can play up front and how often we play Shankland if he's struggling a little bit or if we want to try another option. So I think that's one of my bigger concerns going forward. I still think there's plenty of time for Kabori to do well, but I'm more concerned about him twice getting started and twice getting taken off at half time because that just seems slightly odd that you'd put him back in and take him off again at half time.
It's the same with Wilson as well. Like, he's a young guy. He's been chucked in against Motherwell after not really playing too much, and he just again gets hooked at half time. It seems daft to be chucking them in just to sort of demotivate them by taking them off.
I suppose I guess I kind of want to try and defend McInnes a bit here because he has got a huge amount of players to try and keep happy. Does that play a part in this where he's just trying to give these guys minutes, or even with someone like Kabori, is he the wild card where I don't know if managers really know what to expect from him, so if you put him in, maybe he adds that extra dynamic, the bit of the unexpected. I do think, Trunter, just the size of squad we've got at the moment, that possibly plays into why we're not really settling on a clear-cut 11 that we maybe in the first few games did. Maybe there's players feeling a bit unsettled. What are your thoughts on that, Trunter?
Yeah, I think they probably are a bit unsettled, but I was just having a thought there, might be totally off with it, but I wonder if the analytics stuff's got any sort of bearing on who's starting, where they're playing, and it's not necessarily sort of the gut instinct of the manager, playing someone that they probably should play. He's got all this information. Oh, I should stick Kabori on the wing rather than up front. Braga might be better as an impact sub. I wonder if that's got anything to do with it, because it like everyone's been saying, it has seemed really odd. Particularly not starting Braga.
Absolutely, and that's, I guess, one of my thoughts. Just are we, or is there any sort of influence or expected influence with the Jamestown model where we're kind of ones that don't fit in with the model? I know that we can only get in ones that have basically been Jamestown approved, but are they putting any expectation for those players that have been selected by Jamestown to be in that team ahead of other players? And are they perhaps wanting players that weren't selected or don't feature highly on the Jamestown model to not have much or at all game time? I guess I'm getting my tinfoil hat on a wee bit, but we just don't know the full dynamics of it all. And I do think it's, a really interesting point. It's a difficult thing for McInnes to deal with.
Just on that, I would say I think there's a more innocent explanation. Like, it's partly to do with squad size. The impression I'm getting from McInnes's comments is he's sort of trying to adapt the team, to fit the opposition or fit whatever formation he's going for. So, and obviously Wilson started isn't a analytics signing. So I'm not getting the sense that he's sort of under pressure to play anyone. I think it's more like he's either not quite worked out who to play yet, or he's trying to make changes based on the opposition or something like that. It's almost like he's maybe overthinking things at the moment. Instead of, when we got McInnes, I kind of thought McInnes was someone we just keep it simple. You'd know what to expect from him. So I think it's been a bit of a shock seeing him make that many changes, because you kind of see McInnes as a kind of what you see is what you get. But I can't see it being analytics pressure, because I think when you've got Braga on the bench unexpectedly again, when you've got Wilson starting, kind of suggests it's more of a McInnes call. It's maybe he's just making slight mistakes or unexpected decisions at the moment, I think.
I've scrunched up my tinfoil hat and thrown it away then. You're dead right about that.
Well, where's the fun in that? Let's make up some random conspiracy theories.
That's you trying to get more listeners, Jamie.
As if I'd ever do something like that.
However,
However,
you're thinking of a name for the episode.
well,
aren't
look,
you?
I don't want to suggest anything, but I'm hearing that Anne Budge is choosing the team. So I'm just going to put that.
We're going to go in an interesting direction with this
Yeah.
episode in the next few weeks, right? It's going to be like a McInnes team selection with Jamie chucking in weird things every week.
Well, that's the direction we're going in now. But not really, no. Look, we'll stick to the facts for now. And the fact of the matter was that the formation of 4-4-2 just wasn't working in that first half. Motherwell did find a lot of space within that. And, last week, Adam, you were talking about how Motherwell kind of changed things to try and play against their opposition. I think part of that came into the game itself, where they managed to really cancel out with us going down the wings, and then really suffocated us to an extent in that area. And then in the middle, found lots of space within our 4-4-2 formation. And they had we kind of had two in the middle there with Devlin McEntee, whereas they had three in the middle with Just, who had a fantastic game. Actually, he's a real player. Watt and Fadinger there, and they just found a lot of joy there. So changes were made. An extra man was brought in to midfield. Kabori and Wilson headed off. Wilson really kind of hardly had any impact whatsoever in that first half. Benny and Braga came on. However, 3 minutes into the second half, things went pretty pear-shaped pretty quickly. Motherwell got a second. I felt Devlin was beaten too easily here. What are your thoughts about this one, John?
Yeah, I think it was just another example of how the game has gone, where it just seemed like we couldn't get close to them, or even when we tried, there was just no, almost like not fight was missing, but it just seemed like we were too slow or not paying attention. It was really strange, but yeah, I mean, again, good goal from Motherwell. Got to give them credit. It was a good finish. I think, yeah, can't really say much more than that. Fair play to them, but far too easy from our perspective.
It was one of those goals that if someone scores that against you in a game of FIFA, you're snapping your controller, or if you're playing with your brother or something, you're just like decking him for that one. Proper FIFA goal that one was. It was too easy for them, but yeah, that had me. Oh no, didn't like that one.
Yeah, raging. I mean, I think this would be actually a good point to come in and say, look, Motherwell were exceptional in this game. This is, I don't know about you guys, but I feel this is probably one of the best Motherwell performances I've seen from them. And we weren't at the races for that first hour. And indeed, Motherwell, you'd have to say, deserved their third, quite honestly. Lungello, a guy we pointed out as a potential dangerman, as we like to call him on here, apparently. With the third, John, talk us through this one.
I'm just going to keep repeating myself again. Just far too easy. I think it was I think Milne gets beaten really easily by O'Donnell, just on the halfway lane. One pass, and again, as I mentioned before, that gap from, Milne to Finlay, the space is there, just runs through, and again, brilliantly composed from him. I thought he was quality the whole game. Just pass it to Longello and game over. I felt like that.
I
Oh, that was
also,
the FIFA one, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a goal where you felt like we'd almost kind of given up at that point. It was just such an easy goal, and I'm not even, the defenders aren't even like busting a gut to kind of get back. They're kind of, just that felt like the moment the game was lost, and we'd kind of just almost like accepted it at that point. So I felt that was the most disappointing goal, just how they just cut through us like that, and it was just so easy.
Do you not think it felt like, in a game where, say, it's like 1-0 and the losing team's attacking and then suddenly there's a counter-attack right at the end, like 90th minute? I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, that's the end of it. There was
Yeah,
just no effort.
It just had a feel of like the game was gone already. Because honestly, watching back, I just maybe they couldn't have caught them or anything, but I really don't think the defense is. Forest, in fairness, is, but like the defenders, I really don't think they're, exactly speeding along to get back. I think it's kind of like John said, it felt like a sort of injury time goal when you're already 1-0 down or something, 2-0 down, so the game's over anyway. That's how it felt to me, and that was just easily the most disappointing one for me.
I was following the whole thing vicariously through you guys in the group chat because I was working that day, and I could see that you all had the stuffing knocked out of you watching it. It just you were all saying the same thing. That's done. That's it. No fight.
It's funny because my dad at this point could tell that his long-awaited return to Tynecastle, that I'd been so excited for him to enjoy and be part of, he could tell, well, by the virtue of the fact my head was in my hands at this point, he needed to provide me some consoling words saying, oh, don't worry, son, just being back here in Tynecastle is just enough for me. It's just fantastic. What a wonderful stadium it is now. And just it feels so enclosed, the atmosphere is incredible. Trying to give me all this positivity. So cheers for that, Dad, if you're listening.
Your dad must have been speaking pretty loud over the booing in the background at that point.
Yeah,
So
he
that's
was,
pretty
actually.
impressive.
Yeah, bit of context. I've seen a lot of football with Jamie, and he's not a good loser.
To say the least. Neither is Adam when it comes to quiz, but we'll be we'll be doing that later.
I'm saying nothing.
Yeah, probably best.
It's
Right,
just
so
it's just a quiz. Like, it's just a fun little thing in each episode. So there's absolutely no reason to get worked up about it. So yeah.
Keep telling yourself that, mate.
yeah, repeat that to yourself throughout the quiz when it comes later. However, we did have something to cheer about 3 minutes after that, and it was an absolute beauty of a goal, Trunter. Talk me through it.
Oh, it was so good. Like, me, I love a good, just like thunder bastard of a shot. But there was just something about the way that Milne hit it. He was he was the first score. Then it was Braga too. But yeah, it was it was like, I've had enough of this. Wham!
And honestly, I don't know what it was about it. I just instantly at that point felt belief. I think it was just maybe the fact my dad was here and he'd seen a goal at Tynecastle again after all this time. I just felt incredibly optimistic. And me and my dad were saying, look, if we get another, etc., who knows what will happen. But I just felt at that point we could get back into this, even though the team really hadn't, up until that point, given me much to believe in.
Sometimes it just takes that, like a really good goal.
Totally.
And it was so, so confidently taken. That just uplifts the whole team, uplifts the crowd as well when it's something like that, rather than some kind of like scrappy, deflected effort. You don't think we're necessarily back in it, but that one just kind of got the ball rolling.
I also think there's something about McInnes in this season, despite the kind of negativity of the last couple of games. There is something like, we came back against Dundee United, we came back against St Mirren. I know we lost, but there is a kind of fight in the team that you kind of feel, just get a goal, get the crowd on their back, and get the crowd like supporting them. So I think there's something about this team that get one goal and everyone kind of gets behind them again and thinks we might be able to do it.
I do also think, though, that, this is something I was going to touch on later when we're sort of reviewing it all and trying to pick out the positives, but I might as well mention it now. This is what kind of gives me some real optimism for the derby. How often is it we see that it's just a game of scrappiness? There's no great tactile nuance to it. It's just about a team that has fight and desire, and this just we just seem to have that all over. I know that we didn't see it up until about this point, but as soon as the cards are down, they just seem to have that fighting spirit, and this is really what makes me feel still that sense of optimism about it. Now, you mentioned earlier that it was Braga who scored that second goal for us. It kind of, there was sort of flashbacks when I watched this one again. It reminded me slightly of Bednar back in the day, kind of that touch and that finish about it. What were your thoughts about the goal, John?
It's a really smart finish, if I'm being honest. I mean, obviously, he takes it in well. Good ball from Spittle as well, who I actually thought was quite good when he came on. Wasn't too sure about him coming on. But yeah, the touch takes it in, and to hit that through the keeper's legs, and I definitely think he meant it as well. It wasn't like it was, he's tried to go for the bottom corner, it's gone for his legs. It looked like he knew exactly what he was doing, and that's not easy to do at all.
I was also I was very happy that Spittle was the one that set it up, because he's obviously struggled a bit recently, and I'd say that was my favourite goal. That was my favourite goal of the match. Just the way, the great pass through, and then the way Braga scored from there. That was not an easy goal at all, but he made it look easy, and he's just such an exciting player. So yeah, that was definitely my favourite goal.
It was his weak foot as well, wasn't it? It was his left.
Yeah, and just the ease at which he did it. I mean, and actually another thing, for once I was happy we had VAR, and it was like we got a second chance to celebrate it, because normally it kind of ruins the celebrations, but it almost helped just getting a second big cheer from the fans.
The crowd were all behind the team, and it just felt we had such a good momentum. Kizaridis at this point came on for Forest, and in the 83rd minute was when we found that equaliser. Adam, talk me through it.
So I think the equaliser was a really good team move. We had Shanklin, we had Benny, and then it was a good shot by Harry Milne, who has been involved in so many goals so far. He's been brilliant attacking wise. And then obviously a fairly simple kind of tap in for Braga, but he still did well to anticipate it. And those celebrations were just amazing. I don't think there's ever been a time I've celebrated an equaliser against Motherwell at Tynecastle so much, but it felt like such a brilliant moment. And at that point, honestly thought we were going to win it, but it was just such an amazing feeling to come back like that. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen us come back from 3 goals down, and I don't know if I've ever seen such a turnaround from people booing and absolute misery at the match to 20 minutes later, you're somehow there's a brilliant atmosphere. That was pretty amazing.
Braga nearly got a hat trick as well, didn't he?
Yeah, Braga had a good couple of opportunities to get his hat trick right at the end. Keeper did really well with the first one where he tried to chip over him, and the second one was kind of more at him, but still it was a decent enough save, and he kind of made up for the fact, the keeper made up for the fact he spilt the ball right onto the path of Braga. But credit to Braga for being in the right place at the right time, and also just chasing up. He's got that striker's instinct, which we really need from our front men. But it was just, going back to that moment when the equaliser went in, that was just me and my dad were just arm in arm, jumping up and down. It was a really, really special moment, and it was just a really wonderful memory, and it capped off a very exciting day back at Tynecastle for him. Probably taken a good few years of both our lives. However, it finished 3-3. Thoughts on the performance overall, John?
Yeah, like I said before, I think first half just far too easy. Even up till about 65, was it 65th minute or something they scored? I can't remember exactly, but yeah, just far too easy. Didn't look like we even really cared. But yeah, a lot of credit to the players who played the second half. I think just takes a lot to come back from 3-0 down, in any case. But when you've got Tynecastle on your back as well, it's not makes it a lot more difficult. I think it's just a case, wrong team set us back again 2 weeks in a row, and I think the biggest factor is going to be next week is the starting lineup. I think he has to just go back to what's been working, starting Braga. If he doesn't, I'm going to be a little bit more worried because it seems clear to everyone that he's just getting it wrong.
I do want to sort of also talk about a couple of performances, not in a positive light. Devlin, probably his poorest in a good wee while. Certainly this season, easily. We're talking about what a good player he's been for us lately, but that was just, there were complaints about Devlin at least a couple of years back where he was doing a lot of sideways passing, a lot of backwards passing. I mean, even a season ago, you could occasionally see it, but that was really a main complaint he would get put his way. You could see that when the crowd got on his back, he didn't react well to it. He looked kind of a bit petulant at times. I saw him arguing with a fan at the end. So there was just, that's not the Devlin we want to see. I also noticed that Shankland, he was dropping deep again. And, that again reminds me of some of the bad times with Naismith and Critchley as well, where he just wasn't getting the service from midfield, so you'd have to find himself going back the way to try and get things going. So it was disappointing to see that. Was there any performances or players you want to pick out in a good or a bad way, Adam?
Obviously, Braga did great when he came on. I think Benny made a difference. He did have like 2 or 3 passes where he played it straight out of the park. But I do think Benny coming on really showed his quality. And he did a lot better than Devlin did. Because as you said, I think Devlin was quite disappointing. I also think Harry Milne was good again. And I think Milne's consistently been strong so far. The other thing I was going to mention I was going to also just mention it was great to meet Jamie's dad, and really nice guy, and it was like meeting an older version of Jamie in terms of appearance, voice, everything basically. Demeanor was all like an older version of Jamie, but it was really lovely to actually get the chance to meet him at a match as well. And I'm kind of glad we came back as well for him, so it wasn't just it would have been a pretty horrible comeback if we'd lost 3-0 at Motherwell.
That'd be absolute sods on. Thank you for the kind words. I will certainly take that as a compliment. The other sort of point I wanted to make about some of the players as well, actually no, about McInnes himself. I noticed at one point when we're 3-0 down, McInnes was telling the crowd to calm down. I don't know how well that's going to play out, but he did mention in his interview afterwards, after the game, just, we need to keep a level head. We'll have difficult times at Tynecastle, but you really need to back the players. Fair enough, I suppose, but it's just one of these things that sometimes doesn't go down so well when your team are losing 3-0 at home to Motherwell. Let's talk about positives again then. Let's focus on them. One big thing for me, Trunter, was that not a single goal came from a set piece. And that was one of the things we touched on last week, was just how many goals we were coming from set piece, almost 100% in fact. So it was great to see 3 goals that weren't directly from set pieces. Your thoughts on that?
I thought it was quite refreshing having goals from set pieces for the first time in a good few years, actually. But no, it was good that they were all from open play. I'd just like to say as well, I thought I really like Blair Spittle. I know he's not been fantastic for us recently, but I thought he had a really good game when he came on against Motherwell there. I think he got the assist for one of Braga's goals, I think. But he might have something to prove as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I remember when we were talking about the Aberdeen game, the first game of the season, and I had a feeling he'd probably start. I think, again, this comes sort of back to like Devlin, obviously does his job really well, but he has to have someone next to him who can take the ball forward, who can pass for him. He's never going to have that ability to, break the lines with passes. It has to be someone like Spittle or Benny. And I thought, I think Spittle made that difference where it was just even looking to move it forward. It was never, I'm going to go back or sideways. I'm going to always look forward.
I think Devlin's his role's changed a little bit as well this season, so he's maybe having a wee bit of trouble getting used to what he's supposed to be doing. I mean, he's been playing a lot more attacking this season than he did last anyway. And with the formation change as well, it's just maybe not worked out for him. But I did see him giving a bit of stick to folk, which wasn't good to see.
I definitely don't think it's his fault. I think it should be something that the manager, the management team are picking up on, that he works so much better when he's got someone next to him who does that side for him.
Yeah.
Like, you get the best out of Devlin with someone like Benny next to him, or somebody can at least pass the ball.
McInnes actually mentioned Spittle in his post-match comments about what an influence he had on the game. He's one of those players I'm just still not sure about how he'd fit in, but he seems to be doing okay. Just, I appreciate that McInnes tends to play a 4-4-2, and I know that, Spittle had a good relationship with Penrice back when he was playing for us. And I wondered how he'd do with Milne, but he doesn't really seem to be having that relationship with him, and he's doing a more central role, which is kind of what I'd expect from Spittle. However, again, I was just concerned about how that would fit in. But I suppose a good thing about McInnes is that he's not afraid to change formations from his expected two strikers 4-4-2 kind of setup and involve players like him. So I think he's quite keen to keep Spittle. There has been rumours that he's potentially off to Kilmarnock, but I think McInnes will be very keen to just keep him here for this season at the very least. And I think also another point I want to make about McInnes now, we've talked about how the formation didn't look right, the lineup didn't look right. We kind of criticised the lack of energy from the team themselves, but we also have to, if we're going to do that, we also have to credit McInnes for the fact, yes, it was down to the substitutions, but he made the decision to bring A, them on, and B, to put them into the formation that managed to get us back into the game. So they also just want to highlight that as well, that he played a big part in getting us back into the game, not just the substitutes as well.
I think that's a good point, because he is making mistakes with the lineups, but he is making a lot of changes at half time. I mean, on the one hand, it's worrying. I think we've had 7 subs at half time in the last 3 games, which is very worrying on the one hand in terms of who we're starting. But the encouraging thing is he's not afraid to rip things up and kind of make a few changes and actually make an impact. And every time we've made the subs, I think we've improved. It's obviously just hoping that we can get the lineup right in future games.
It is testament to him that we've made those changes. It's just one of those where, it depends. Is he going to learn from those starting lineups so we don't need to be making those changes, which hopefully going forward, he'll realise it now.
The other games that this weekend saw us remain near the top, not quite at the top, but we're now in second place because Celtic won their game 3-0 against Livingston. We'll look a bit more into that in a moment. The other game on the Saturday was Kilmarnock against Dundee. Apparently a very, very dull game. The scoreline suggests as much as well, 0-0. Rangers continuing their recent form of being pish, getting a 1-1 draw against St Mirren. It's one of those things we're talking in the group chat. We kind of want Rangers to do poorly, but also to not poorly enough for them to pull the trigger on their manager, because I just think our best chance of beating them at Ibrox is with Russell Martin in charge. The other thing I also want to bring up was I noticed that Chris Boyd and Chris Sutton were talking in the media the other day about the age-old debate that never seems to go away. Who is the third biggest club in Scotland? Like, we can look at all different kind of factors that play into it, from attendance to trophies to results, and I think they've all kind of got a fair shout out. I know that Aberdeen always mention their European glories, but you can't make a decision based on that alone, because I mean you look at maybe something like Nottingham Forest, who obviously had a huge amount of European success in the 80s, but you wouldn't say they're bigger than Newcastle, for example. Any thoughts on this debate at all?
I think we're all pretty much agreed that Hearts are the third biggest team in Scotland. We all sided with Chris Boyd, funnily enough. But I think Aberdeen, obviously huge, and let's not lie, Hibs are a big team too. Aberdeen sort of historically probably got a really good claim. But the one that you guys haven't talked about is Dundee United. They are massive in Nigeria.
Yeah, of course. A nicely throwback to a previous episode there. I like it.
I mean, I think it's Hearts based on fan base overall. I think what's the only thing that's disappointing to me is just that we haven't won a bit more. I think we should. I think we've underachieved, to be honest with you. I think we should have had a few more cups.
All three of us have
definitely.
underachieved. All three of us have underachieved in some shape or form since 1990 or whatever. Aberdeen, they only won their first Scottish Cup since 90, 91, I think it was. They last won one, and obviously Hibs have only won one in their puff, pretty much. So it's it's just.
I just think if we could just consistently do really, I mean, what I would say about Hearts is like if you look at the last few years, like the difference between when I was a kid and now in terms of our support. Because I remember when I was a kid, and the average attendance would be more like sometimes 12,000, that kind of thing. And in the last few years, when you see us selling out season tickets every year, you see there being a waiting list. I think there's absolutely massive potential. And even with how awful we were last year, you still get the same level of back end. So I think we just have so much potential. It's just you've got to hope someone like Bloom and all the things that are going on at the moment can kick us on a bit, because I do think we could go even more. If our stadium was a bit bigger, I think we could get even bigger crowds. So I do think there's a real potential with us to get even bigger. And also, we're not going to call Hibs a big team on our podcast. Sorry, Trunter.
Yeah, sorry about that, boys.
I don't care when you finished last season.
I think a part of what makes a big team is just how much they're talked about in the media as well. You can look at attendance and we get people giving us pillars saying we're attendance FC, but that is a huge part. When we went to Bruges, just the place was flooded in maroon. That is a sign of a big team. The fact we're selling out so many home games as well is a big sign. Of course, away games, we're selling them out as well. It is a big factor. But like I say, the chat in the media, I think, is always just when you hear a name about a football club, how widely recognised that name is in different countries and different parts of the country, and I guess how they're viewed plays a part in it. And that's why I think this is our best opportunity to really stake a claim. I think it's just too close to really say who is out and out third biggest team.
I mean, I think everyone at the moment, unfortunately, is sort of below the old firm. But like you said, we do have a chance to do something more than we have done. I still think if you looked at like average league position, I'm sure we'd come out on top over the course of Scottish football history. But I'm talking like small margins. Obviously, we're not. Unfortunately, we're not miles ahead of anyone. It's kind of Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen, and then the rest. I think Dundee United, maybe below that, but they're certainly not in the conversation for third biggest team.
I'm not even just saying it to be like snide, but I think Hibs are closer to like your Dundee Uniteds than they are to us in Aberdeen. And I don't really like putting us in with Aberdeen, but I think there's more of a gap there.
I'll back that. Yeah, I mean we've won more games at Easter Road, like more derbies at Easter Road than Hibs have as well. So they might. What I find funny about Hibs is like they have a good season of derbies and it sort of like erases history, whereas the reality is we have won more derbies there as well. So they've got a hell of a long. I think they'd have to beat us every derby for like a couple of decades to catch up with us as well. So
I think you could honestly say they could win every derby until we pop our clogs, and I doubt they'd even that's how big the margin is. It's crazy.
I think as well, when you look at like the three clubs, like obviously we've been in the pits, saving the club and everything. Like if that happened to either of them around that time or even recently, like I don't think they get anywhere near as much backing at that point as we did. Like the fans obviously came out in massive numbers. Like, I don't think you get that from either of them.
That's true. I think the foundation of Hearts part is being like a massive part of the club and how many supporters we actually have out there. I think it's just trying to fulfill the potential. And I also think, with Aberdeen, they've got the advantage of being, like a one team town.
Yeah,
But I think it'd be rubbish being them. You don't have any proper rivals, really.
yeah.
Like at least Dundee United. It's not the same, is it? Oh yeah. I think that's a good thing in many ways that we've got the Edinburgh Derby.
Fans of other teams as well seem to dislike us, not quite as much as the old firm, but definitely more than
Yeah.
anyone else. And that kind of that tells you a lot, I think.
That is a
Yeah.
good point. We're hated for some reason. I mean, I remember when I was at uni talking to a Dunfermline fan, and then he introduced me to another Dunfermline fan. He was like, "Oh, don't worry, he's a Hearts fan, but he's all right." Like, I was like, "What the fuck, Dunfermline?" I always remember that he was like he had to instantly praise me after he said I was a Hearts fan because in case the guy hated me just for being Hearts. So I've had that a couple of times with like teams that you wouldn't expect, and you're like, "Are you kidding me, Dunfermline?"
Did the guy raise all three of his fists at you?
I had a fun one in Benidorm. I was on holiday there, and I was in the hotel, and I put my heart strip on. I was going out. I think we were playing. I don't know we were playing, but I walked out the hotel with my heart strip on. And I could hear loads of people talking, sounding like they had like Glasgow accents, and I was like, "Oh, here we go." I bet when I come back, there's gonna be something about the game. And I walked back in like a couple of hours later, and they'll start pointing at me and they're like shouting, going, "Hey, look at that Hearts fan!" I was like, "Oh, here we go. There's definitely gonna be like Celtic Rangers." Like a group of like 15 of them start shouting, Ackies, Ackies, Ackies. And I was like, what? Why am I getting off you?
I've definitely seen that though. Like, I think Trunter makes a great point that we seem to be unpopular with a bunch of teams. I don't quite know why, but that's normally a sign of like you hate the teams that have a bigger support, don't you?
Christ, are we the Millwall of Scotland?
Everybody hates us.
We don't care.
Aye, everyone hates Gargay, but we fucking love him, so that's all that matters,
I
right?
also went to Madrid at one point, and this guy started singing the Hearts song to me, and I walked past just a random Spanish guy in the street, and I was like, "That's amazing." So
Class.
that shows our size,
Well, exactly. There we go. That kind of settles the debate, in my
Not getting
opinion.
anyone shout singing "Sunshine on Leaf" in Madrid, are you?
Hibs will have you believe otherwise. I saw someone saying on Twitter a while back, just saying that they could get a load of people visiting from different countries so they can experience sunshine on Leith in Easter Road Stadium. I just don't.
That was a joke.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it. I'll be honest. But
Oh, I mean, what have Aberdeen got?
Stand free. That's the only song they've got. Let's be honest.
When the Reds go steaming in,
That's the worst
also
one.
abysmal.
Oh no, they've got that, what's that famous one they sing? The Hearts Are Falling Apart one they seem to love. Even though
Oh,
the first
I think
was.
every.
Motherwell singing that.
Motherwell and Dunfermline were singing it.
Honestly, that is like our superpower. As soon as a team sing that,
I
we
know.
always seem to just get a new lease of life. So yeah, bring it on, basically.
I remember Dundee singing that against us as well when they were like
They sing it.
when they were going down or something, and they were still singing "Hearts Are Falling Apart," and it was
Have you
like,
seen the St Mirren page on X? And there's like a fan page. They keep posted every time they manage to beat us. And there's like 4 posts in the last like 5 or 6 years. It's like Hearts are falling apart, part 4. Like,
They were playing Joy Division. They were playing Joy Division level to House Apart about 8 times when me and Adam were in the set in Paisley.
yeah, that was
Pish
that
patter.
was their main song.
Anyway, so that sets it. Hearts third biggest club. Moving on. Okay, so this week's quiz question, as always, find a club that connects both of them out with their time at Hearts. So you've got Juho Michaela or Joe Michaela, and Ryan McGowan. I'll give you some time to think about that. In the meantime, let's have a think about what we would like to see ahead of the Livingston against Hearts match. There has been talk from McInnes himself at getting a new keeper in. We've talked at length about the right back situation. John, is there any other things you would like to see change within our team ahead of the weekend?
I think the last two games have just made it even more evident that we do need that centre midfield, like sort of ball playing midfielder or somebody who's going to drive forward. I think it's very unlikely we're going to get someone in who's ready for Livingston, but yeah, I think we need to have at least three in the midfield. You know, have Benny, Devlin, and then I'd go with Spittle next to them, or McEntee for one of the other two. But yeah, I don't think we can play again with that formation. We need to have stronger midfield. That's the main thing.
Okay, so let's take a slightly deeper look at the Livingston squad ahead of our visit to the stadium formerly known as the Spaghetti Had. It's what's called the Set Fair Arena now, or some pish.
That's nowhere near as good as Tony Macaroni. Got it.
No. But then again, what is? They're a team that are notoriously difficult to break down, and we have looked a bit vulnerable when we've not managed to get a goal early on. As far as their squad goes, they've got a couple of injuries and suspensions. I suppose one of the big ones for us is not an injury or a suspension. It's the fact they're part of a loan deal. Tate won't be playing for them, and he's been pretty solid for them since signing over from them. There's some of the old guard there. I'll let John talk you through some of these players.
Yeah, so obviously former players, they've got Ryan McGowan, legend, and Danny Wilson as well. Both them playing alongside each other. Bit of a weird one for us Hearts fans to look at, but nevertheless, I think they've got a couple of decent players. I wouldn't say they're exceptional, but obviously their keeper, I think is it Pryor? He's quite good. Decent save on him.
It's got Jack Hamilton as well. That's another ex-Jambo, isn't it?
Collecting them all.
Aye.
Yeah, so again, Silla probably, the midfielder, was at Dundee last season. I think he looks pretty solid. I've not watched a lot of Livingston, but from what I have seen, they've got a winger, I think it is, like Lewis Smith. Does look like he's got a bit about him. So probably say him and Silla, the main two. But they've got the big guy, Bakila or something up front. I think he could be
Jeremy
a handful.
Bagila, yeah.
Yeah, it could be a handful, but yeah, anything you think about it, Trunter?
Yeah, I've always quite liked Scott Pittman, and I was convinced that he'd played somewhere else, but he's played pretty much his whole career at Livy. He's got a lot of experience. He's a good player.
Right, so I mean, as far as what we think the lineup will be, we've kind of talked a little bit about who we want up front. Are you sticking with the idea of Shankland and Braga up front, or would you introduce Kabori and Braga? Obviously, we talked about the issue of not playing our captain. What are your thoughts, Adam?
I think it needs to be Shankland and Braga for this one, to be honest. I'd be quite happy to see that. And I think John touched on it earlier, but if Braga's not starting, I'll be a little bit worried about McInnes learning from his mistakes. So I'm pretty confident it'll be Shankland and Braga.
John, anyone you want to see come into the squad? You kind of touched on it earlier, but any sort of particular formations you'd like to see us adopt?
It's a difficult one because you don't really want to be saying play, with 3 or 5 at the back against Livingston. But if you look at it from the other sense and go more attacking, have the 3 centre backs, got Mill on the left. And to be honest, I'm not Alan Forrest's biggest fan, but I wouldn't really be that bothered if he does start this one. I think Livingston's the sort of game that he'd probably be okay in. If not, obviously Kizzy, and then 3 in the midfield and Shankland and Bragg up front. And if Shankland's not doing it, then hook him at half time. Give him the treatment everyone else is getting.
I'd have Benny starting somewhere. Obviously Braga, but I'd start Benny.
Yeah, I think Devlin, as you said, didn't look in great shakes in the last game. I guess it kind of depends how training goes this week, because Devlin has been exceptional for most of the season. Maybe, again, I'm reluctant to play Benny and Devlin together. I'm just not convinced they are two players that complement each other that well. They do very similar jobs, and neither have quite the level of creativity that, say, McEntee has. So I'd like to see one of them play alongside McEntee. I guess it's really 6.5 a dozen as far as I'm concerned. Maybe just whoever's trains better, and if Devlin's in the right headspace, really, to start the game.
It could be quite good to see McEntee with Benny, because I don't think if they actually played like directly the two of them next to each other. I'm trying to think back, but it'd be interesting to see how they played together.
Right, so back to the quiz then. You'll have noticed that I picked a player who currently plays for Livingston. That's not the answer. Michaela and McGowan then. Trunter, do you want to go first with your guess?
So it's going to sound like I looked it up, but I knew it instantly, Jamie, because you and I were at the Hearts Barcelona game where the great Juho Michaela scored our only goal in a thumping. So I tend to just see what he's up to every now and again, and I have done for years. And I've literally been looking at McGowan's for today, but that's another player. I looked him up quite recently when we were chatting about X-Jambos and stuff as well, and I do know the answer, and I'm not going
We'll
to say
come back
it.
to you in a minute then.
Yeah. Just get Adam on. It's proper good content.
Right, Adam. Deep breaths.
Well,
What's your answer?
I've been good so far, but I don't actually know this one.
Fine.
I know it's not a British club, so the only thing I can really guess is I don't think it's right, but I can only guess a Chinese club because I know McGowan played in China. No idea where Michaela's played apart from Finland and Scotland.
Can you remember the name of the Chinese club that he played for? Oh, he played for a couple, actually, McGowan.
Is there like an NG in it or something? I don't.
You know what? I'm not going to try and pronounce it either. So your answer is a Chinese team. Fine. What?
I don't have a clue what the names are. Sorry, I can't remember. Shanghai FC.
I'll be honest. You can probably guess that I'm. Look, I'm a bit of a prick, but I'm not that evil to the extent where I'd make you try and pronounce some sort of Chinese team for the answer. So
I'm sure there was like
I'll let you know you're wrong.
I just remember there was an NG, I think, in the name. That's literally, or an N or something. That's all I remember. But like, there was one that began with H or something, wasn't there?
You're right.
There was a letter in
it. There was a letter of the alphabet in this team
of the alphabet. Anyway, no. The point is, I'm pretty sure Michaela probably didn't play in China because I don't think that's that likely. But I don't know. I can't think of anyone else it could be. So.
Right, John, your guess. I'll give you a clue. It's not a Chinese team.
Are there any letters in the name?
Yeah. There are letters in the name. So, John, do you want to guess based on those clues?
Well, I think what other clubs he's played for. Well, McGowan's played for anyway. I mean, to be fair, I don't even know how old I was when Michaela was playing. So,
all right, you're much younger than us, John.
not genuine. I'm just trying to go off that.
Where were you when the Barcelona friendly happened?
What year was that?
What year was that? 2007. Wow.
Oofed.
Well, yeah, so I would have been 7.
Yeah, yeah, you got a good excuse for this one.
I don't know if he played in Scotland. I'll just say someone like Dundee United because I'm sure McGowan played.
Michaela was awful, by the way. I know he scored against Barcelona, but rubbish.
Oh, so he must have gone to
that
Hibs.
Motherwell game, I think it was at Tynecastle, awful.
Right, Trunter. Yeah. Put us out of our misery.
I will do. It's Sydney.
Correct. Well done.
One, yeah.
Thank you.
I was even thinking of Australia, and that's actually quite a good one, yeah.
Who would you say had played more games for Hearts, Ryan or Dylan McGowan?
Oof, that's a good
I'm going to guess this
Dylan
is a trick question, and it's Dylan McGowan.
Well, he was there for a few years when, like,
yeah,
after the youngsters.
Yeah, the funny thing is, Ryan McGowan was at us for years, but he didn't really break through to the team until he was like early 20s, I think, didn't he? Whereas Dylan got chucked in when we had like all the financial problems. So I'm guessing it's Dylan based on the fact that you asked it.
Yeah, I
Well,
know. I gave that one away.
I'm glad you came up with the answer there, because I was about to say I think you're actually trying to double bluff us, and it is Ryan. But no, I'll make my answer Dylan.
I think I actually remember when you were asking me recently, Jamie, about Australian players that had played over 100 games, and I think I saw in that list that Dylan had more as well.
Right. Well, there we go.
Anyway, it's Dylan, but that wasn't the quiz question. Trunter gets it this week.
Yeah, I think that puts you at 1 apiece now, or 1.5 if you really want that one,
We can go
Adam.
for 1.5 to
Give him
1.
the half point.
Fine.
Oh well, wait a minute. Did I say I said there was an N in the Chinese team? Sydney has an N, so that's like a sixth of a point or something, right?
Fine.
Jesus
We can,
Christ.
if you really want it, you know.
I don't want this one. I don't want this one. This one, I'm happy. I didn't have a clue what it was. So yeah, Trunter gets the full point. Well done. But that's actually pretty impressive that you got that straight away.
That was impressive.
Like I say, just pure like it's just two players that I happen to have looked up really recently. So
We only need to start looking up. We only need to start looking up former Hearts players' careers.
And John, if you want to come into contention in this leaderboard we've got going on, come onto the show every now and again, and
We'll have to get some players from when John was at least like 10 years old as well.
Fine.
Now, to be fair, some of them I can work out or like can sort of guess from maybe where the players are from. I know some players, but yeah, difficult.
I would have put more thought into it, but I'll be honest, I kind of just chucked it together before we're about. I mean, you were still listening to me as I was trying to put it together. So yes, didn't put as much preparation into that one as I'd hoped.
I had a backup one for you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Shall I just keep it for next week?
Yeah, keep it for next week. That'd be good to be quizzed myself rather than being the quiz master. So.
That's what I thought. Yeah, get you in on the board.
Maybe
Excellent.
the winner has to come up with the next. That
is a good shout.
Well
Let's
played,
do it
yeah.
that way.
Jamie always gets a chance rather than having to look it up all the time.
Fine. Well, I'm keen for that.
If no one gets it, it's like a rollover. You just have to go again. I'm taking this too seriously.
I respect it. Right, so predictions then, folks. What are we going for? A scorer or multiple scorers or no scorers, depending on your prediction? I'm going to start with you, John.
I'm going to say 3-1. Scorers. I'm going to say it's out of hope. Braga starts and scores in the first half, and then. So I'm going to chuck two of the new boys in, Kizzy and Kabore.
Right, Adam, what are you thinking?
I'm going to go for 2-1 Hearts, and as a goal scorer, I'm just going to go for Braga this time. I know it's an obvious one, but I'm saying it more because I hope he's actually playing and starting the game. I think Braga will get a double, actually. That'll be mine, if we're going for more than one goal scorer. Braga double, 2-1.
Okay, Trunter, what are you thinking then?
Easy 3-0 victory. Braga's going to start. He's going to score. Finley's going to pump in a header from a corner. And then just to try and get my prophecy fulfillment going, I think Benny's going to scuff one home right in injury time.
I forgot about that.
Aye.
By the way, I think you go for Finlay every week, don't you, Trunter? Finlay
Yeah,
header.
it's going to happen if I just keep saying it.
The problem is he scored so many goals at the start. Maybe that's him done for a while. But yeah,
that's his quota.
In that case, I'll go for, I'm going to go for 3-0 as well. I think we'll maybe score towards the end of the first half. Then we'll get another about the hour mark, and then one last one at the end. And that one at the end will be from Pierre Landry Kabore, is my goal scorer for that one, off the bench, celebrating, I don't know, maybe with a cartwheel, forward roll, with a wee couple of gun fingers at the end or something like that. Don't forget, folks, to follow us on our socials. We're on X, and we're on Blue Sky, and we're on YouTube, Hearts on Sleeves podcast. Please do follow, please do like and comment and get involved in the conversations on there. We're also toying with the idea of maybe having an Instagram. If there's any interest in that, do let us know, and you can get in touch with us, Hearts on Sleeves podcast at outlook.com, with any thoughts about this podcast or any thoughts about Hearts on and off the pitch. We shall see you after the Livingston game for our thoughts and feelings, and what will hopefully be back to winning ways for the Jambos. See you then.